Hey everyone, good morning. So it's a pleasure to be standing here and talking about AI agents. Just to give a quick summary of what exactly we will be dwelling today, because all of you know that it's a topic that really is catching the attention. It's something that many of us in the industry are very excited. Big tech companies are talking about agents as the future. If you scan the latest news, um, there is hardly any company in the top 10 of the Fortune tech companies that do not talk about AI agents, right? Be it the big ones like Salesforce, Google, Microsoft. Everyone basically is talking about a world where we are going to have agents driving us. So in today's session, what I really wanted to talk about was just make it clear as to what is this multi agent system that we are talking about, right? Like, what is it? Why is it so relevant in today's world? What's happening? Why so much of focus is there on this particular technology? Then we'll talk about the benefits, because unless and until we see what's the benefit of a particular technology, the adoption is practically going to be next to nothing, right? Then switching gears, I think I want to connect the dots by talking about what is the relevance to the startup ecosystem coming in this, coming together in this kind of an environment. I think we need to talk about how it all ties into the startup ecosystem. Every tech, as you know, has a challenge. It does come with its own set of challenges. We need to overcome those challenges. So all these we will discuss after we have gone through the relevance. And finally, we'll talk about the future of multi-agent system, because I'm not over exaggerating this, but even Mark Zuckerberg called it out, right? Like, in the near future, we could have billions of agents driving this ecosystem. So how does all of that tie together is what we had the flow. I intend to wrap it up not in 25 minutes, 30 minutes, so that we have around 15 minutes left for Q&A. I would love to take more and more questions rather than make it like a monologue from my side. Okay, so what exactly are multi-agent systems, right? So if I have to just leave aside the slides, I'm just having that as a reference. But if you look at it, up until now, we were it is not something that we have not done in the past, right? If you look at it, automation, be it the RPA evolution, any process re-engineering that we did where we automated things, we always were striving for this automation to some extent, right? So, but the simple thing that you need to understand is, in this evolution, we saw that we had to programmatically engineer something. So, example, today, if you wanted to do process re-engineering or introduce an automation somewhere, you had to write a set of code, a set of rules. If this happens, you need to do this. It was basically like a decision tree that you had to build and keep evolving that, because a new use case, the moment it hits, you had to go back to all the legacy code. You had to go through that new defining the new rules. In some cases, if the rule is completely a new use case, you had to revisit the code, underlying code itself, right? So it was possible. It was being done. Last decade, I was part of many of those initiatives. We moved in the DevOps itself. We moved most of the testing, rapid prototyping. All these we moved towards the automation. We ran it through RPAs, etc. Right? But something big changed when we really went into the transformer architecture. Right? When we started predicting and we started creating content, what really happened is we basically moved from that rule base to more of a generative sort of a space. That's when it caught the attention of most of the folks. General public jumped into the GPT side. The chat GPT became the talk of the town, etc. And the up until that time, what we really lacked was, we didn't have a second order or a chain of thought sort of a framework, right? Like, how do I go into deep reasoning that we as a human brain, when we get a problem, we go deeper and try to figure out what exactly is happening, and then take a course of action, right? We don't just, we use a lot of tools. We use a lot of tools. If today someone comes and asks, like, how did you plan your trip to this particular Kovalam? You're not just going to go and generate content. You're going to leverage multiple tools. It could be a platform where you booked, where you stayed. All these kind of stuff comes together. So that's exactly where now things are really getting interesting, because for the first time, we might be able to move into an ecosystem where machines can also give that second order level of thinking. So that's the reason these are the simple parameters that you need to understand when we talk about agents. I have subsequent slides where I'll go slightly technical and you can understand where I'm going. But what are they? They are highly collaborative systems. It's not like they can work standalone, but they can also collaborate. That's the beauty about it. They're autonomous. That's the key word here, right? Like they can take decisions on your behalf. It is up to us to define how much we want them to be autonomous. That is why we ground their rules and we say that, hey, this is the scope within which you should be able to take decisions. But beyond that, you can always bring the human in the loop, right? So that is why you have autonomy. That's the single most important feature that you need to remember about agents. Also, the specialization. You can build very, very specialized agents which are going to be vertical or horizontal. I have a slide for that. I'll explain that. The key is dynamic interaction. It's not going back to the way I started, right? We are not here to make a very static set of rules which basically have to be revisited. So that's a very, very key aspect of a multi-agent system. And finally, broad applications. I was talking to when I was in I'm based out of Bangalore, so I do a lot of startup connects. I basically told them that bring any use case, bring any startup or bring any use case that you are in. There is inevitably a plane now where an agent can fit in. It can range from 20% to 80%, unless and until you are in the data entry where it can be as high as 99%. But usually, if you talk to any startup, we will see that the range of adoption is around 20 to 80%, any of the use case that you can bring. So that's why it's becoming so exciting, because had it been limited to a set of a particular domain or a particular area of focus, this might not have got the amount of traction that we have had for the last quarter or so. Okay, so I just want to go slightly deeper, and this is, I've taken this from LangChain. LangChain is, when you can, I left the link, you can go and go through it, because LangChain is one of the key architectures on which we can design agents. So what is a multi-agent architecture, or what is it? If you look at it, remove the first, just focus on the first one. It's not like it's something out of the box here, right? End of the day, it's an LLM. LLM which is having access to multiple tools. It's not something that we have built from ground up where we are going and reinventing the wheel. It is still an LLM which basically has access to multiple tools. That's the simple single entity agent. So if today you want to build a single use case, example, I want to just do a math problem or take Fourier series as your calculation, and you want to have an agent which can seamlessly solve that equation anytime. That's a single, very simple use case a mathematician might be looking out. You can design a single agent with access to a few tools and just deploy it so that it works like a charm in that small space that's going to be. But that's not what we want to be having as the future, right? The future is when we start having an ecosystem where multiple agents can talk to each other, they can discuss, they can come to a level of understanding, and if they are allowed to be taking autonomous decisions, they might even take it. Unless and until you define that, hey, I need to be in the human in the loop. So how do you do that? The only simple thing, I got a question last week where someone said, hey, then is all LLM agent? No, not all the LLMs are not agents. You need some architectures like LangChain, or we have AutoGPT, or we have few other tools where we have to come together, and all these have to be defined. So it's like a platform on which you go and first define what is the scope of that agent. It's all NLP, right? It's not like you need to go and start coding with them. It's NLP. You define the description, describe the the agent what it is. You can say that, hey, it's a you are going to be a travel agent who is going to be looking out for customers coming from Europe to Kerala. That could be the scope. Then you start going deeper and telling them about what tools you have access to. So there could be a multiple APIs that you can expose. You can say, hey, you can look into the weather, you can look into, these are the available tools, you can always leverage. So this is where a tool, a platform, or a architecture like LangChain comes in, because you need to go there and start defining what is the scope of your agent, and then the magic starts happening. So all LLMs are not agents, but definitely at a granular level, LLM is what is actually enabling this entire thing to be coming into life. There are a few examples here, right? So that's the beauty about it. There is no single architecture that you need to follow. You need to be like, hey, all these agents are going to be just defined in this. It could be a network where each of them can be talking to each other, or it could be like a parent-child sort of, which is the supervisor-follower architecture, where you have a master agent who is going to basically keep a track on all the other ones who might be interacting only with the master. Then there is the supervisor as a tools. So this is more like the LLMs which interact with multiple tools, and they basically perform the action. The hierarchical one is what might be the future, is where my bet is, mainly because, example, if you take a smart city, the AI or the brain might be sitting in a central command. That could be the possibility in future, right? Like if you look at an example of a smart city, what it is a combination of, say, maybe healthcare plus infrastructure plus traffic plus lot of other things, right? Like, and if each of them, example, your healthcare has an agent, your traffic management has an agent, master agent, you have emergency services as an agent, defined like that. There could be 25, 30 such agents who could be interacting with the master or the central AI, which could be the network on which all the decisions is being taken. And below each of these agents, you could have, like say, localized agents. It can be just hierarchical to whatever level you want to go, or granular, how granular you want to go, right? So that looks like a great architecture to go. And finally, in many of the use cases, especially in finance and healthcare, I've seen that due to regulatory constraints, many a times you need to put a pause. You cannot just, there has to be intervention before the next step is taken. And in those cases, highly customized flow is what you really start designing. So as you see, it's not completely exhaustive. As I say, I can say that in another 6 months, there might be another list of 15, 20 things that might have come out here, right? Because that's how fast things are evolving in this space. But broadly, to give you an understanding, this is how a multi-agent ecosystem will work in the future. Okay, so this is, pardon for, I didn't get some time to translate that into a PPT diagram, but I think it serves the purpose. So when I spoke about what exactly is happening in today's agentic world, right? So one thing that you need to really understand is, when you design an agent, you basically are looking at 3 types of agents here, right? Like there are agents which are off the shelf, which are like plug and play. Look at a payment when you're in an e-commerce platform. What is a payment gateway? Is it completely revolutionized? Has it changed? Like, are you going to do tremendous innovation in that? It's very simple in Indian context, right? You enter your credit cards, which are already saved. Your OTP comes in. Nowadays, it's automatically punched in. It's like a seamless process that goes through, right? So how much innovation do you need on a use case of this nature? Very limited. In that case, you can always look at an off-the-shelf kind of a solution. So that's what you can pick up and just drop it. We can examples are the M365, the Microsoft 365's agents, which are across all its apps, right? Customizable agents is where a lot of startups are also playing, because it's like startups for startups, right? Like many startups, when they come to us and they want to come to me or any of the consulting world, their main question is, how can I implement any agent in the most efficient way, cost effective, ROI should be there. In those cases, many a times you don't see one agent just plug and play sort of a situation. You need to do some level of tweaking, customization. So that's where you see that on top of the basic agents or the core agents, you end up doing some level of customizations, provided the companies which are launching those enterprise level agents give you that level of customization. In some cases, it's not possible. That's when you have to build grounds up and customize it. Last one is custom build. You will see that in most of the tough use cases, very complex use cases, you have to go build it ground up. You need to do everything. Now, the important thing is how does this technology come into business, right? That's why I tried to bring that into perspective, right? There are horizontals and verticals that we cater to, right? When we look at horizontals, it could be a sales, marketing, product launches, billing. All these are like functions which are agnostic of any company or a vertical. You will have sales cutting across many companies, right? Similarly, that's when the verticals also come in, like different verticals like healthcare, manufacturing. All of them are very different, very, very different use cases. The level of data that is available, the regulatory constraints, the governance that's required, all of these are very, very different for different industries. Now, the intersection, either you deploy agents on individual horizontals or individual verticals, which is not that complex sometimes, because that's where you will see that off the shelf minimal customized agents can be deployed. But the ones which are intersection, the one that is point B, right, where you see a very, very specific intersection where I need to deploy something which is, in this example, I want to re-engineer data for healthcare. Now that is a huge talking point, because there are a lot of private patient data. There is a lot of regulatory stuff around it. Where do I store this data? I can't push it into the cloud. All these kind of nuances need to be taken in. And most importantly, can I have a fully autonomous agent deployed there giving recommendation to the patient saying that, hey, your health is like this? It's not possible, right? So the scope, the boundaries that we are defining, all those need to be made very clear in a unique use case like what we are seeing. So that's why in those scenarios, you'll see very, very high level of customization, deep thinking. We need to go deeper and find out what's happening there. So just moving on, like all this talk, all this will have to finally come to some level of what is the benefit here, right? Like, why are we aspiring to move into a multi-agent ecosystem? So, couple of things, right? Like the entire AI as a shift is mainly because of two things that we are seeing, right, in the industry. One, it has enabled us to do tasks which we could have not done in the past, like be it high level of precision, high level of computation, all these very tough use cases which would have taken years. We shied away from taking even attempting them, right? AI gave us that boost to even get into that space. It was like a blue ocean where we went in and started creating new opportunities. The second, which is the most spoken about, is how do we get more efficiency? Inevitably, the question is, how can one person do the job of 10 people that we used to do in the past? So that is what AI started, and agents actually is going to push that lever even further, right? Because now I call it more like that, in a very casual way, if I have to put it, it's like the Iron Man having the Jarvis and the Fridays of the world, right? Because Iron Man is no one without the Jarvis or the Friday that ran and continuously collaborated and discussed possible solutions. That's where we might be heading in this. And the benefits is scalability, right? First thing is, yes, you have to define the tech stack properly. You don't want to get the wrong tech stack, or you design something which is for only limited use cases. And then as you scale, you realize that, hey, maybe I have made a mistake on my tech stack. But in the right hands, spending some right time on the tech stack, it's highly scalable. And when you host it on a hyperscaler, it becomes that much more easier because when the workloads really go up, you just have to give your agent that much more capacity to keep performing more tasks. Resilience, right? Because it's decentralized structure. The key thing is when we design an agent, we'll always have a fallback or a backup agent also in place. That's in highly critical, mission critical scenarios. You will always have a BCP kind of an environment where automatic switchover will happen the moment the primary agent fails. So that's possible. We have done that in data recovery, the real-time data syncs, databases. We have done that multiple times. It's going to be very similar. So the reliance on a particular person, I'm going to say, let's not call person, reliance on a particular authority, it could be a machine or a human, is now that much more lesser because in case of an agent, you can really go and have your backups or your primary, secondary, and the next level of dependencies built in for resilience. Then the third one is specialization. This is where I think a lot of focus is there at this point because agents can be very, very technical and specialized at the same time because you can, the moment you understand the use case thorough, you can make it extremely customized for a particular use case. And when I say use case, it can be very, very specialized for, as I told, either a horizontal or a vertical. The fourth one is dynamic decision making. This is very important because how frequently have you seen a scenario where you wished you could have, especially the startups here, right? Like you wish there was someone to connect with your customer when you were not at your best or you don't have that time to really have that initial conversation. I think most of the portals or apps or whatever we are discussing now, dealing with now, be it airlines or be it hospitality, we see them being like the first layer where instead of the good old IVRs, I think the IVR days are gone, right? Like now it is going to be more of agentic conversation. And the best thing that will happen is in 2025, it looks like the memory constraint, the context window constraints that we had might be eliminated significantly. So today, if I had a conversation with anyone here, and in 3 months you ping me again, there is very high likelihood that I would have retained that conversation. So then what happens is a customer who might have purchased 6 months back, if he or she comes in and you have a great way to connect, hey, just wanted to check if how was your purchase last time? I hope since there was no escalations, I feel that you loved our product. Look at that conversation, right? Rather than someone telling that press 1 for this, press 2 for this. Anytime, I'm a loyal customer of say a particular airline, but every time I log in or I call them, it's the same dull voice that I get in, right? So the real-time support, the real-time problem solving, the real-time decision making, having a conversation, those are the ones which really will be a game changer when we talk about agents, because even when you are not in the loop, someone is doing a stellar job to keep your customer happy. That's why I think startups really will love this, because I'm seeing a very, very small teams, like small teams as small as 4, 5 in MVP product, building MVP products, coming to the market, using agents as their secondary workforce. That's possible in the near future. There are very few who are already doing it because of the cost calculations are actually the tougher one. How much should I burn? We'll come to that in the later slides. But the key point you want to know about is the dynamic decision making. And the last, I think I just wanted to bring it out that nothing comes without this cost calculation. ROI calculations are the toughest that we are discussing in AI at this point, because how do I price? Okay, I've seen this wave in SaaS when I was 10 years back when I moved to SaaS. SaaS was almost like the new buzzword. Pricing was such a cakewalk for me as a product manager at that time. I was hyper-converged infrastructures. I don't know how many of you have seen done those things, right? It's like you build the bomb, you just put the cost plus some percentage, get the price, right? For the first time, I was put into this value-based pricing where we were like, what is the value of this software. Like a value of Gmail for me might be very different for any one of you there. So that's why what is the perceived value based on which you calculate the price became a huge challenge. And if that was a challenge, that looks like a cakewalk now, because when people come and ask, how should I price an agent? Now, it's huge, because someone who is who travels, like let's take an example, right? Like a startup which is founder who is maybe jumping 20 destinations in a month, trying to secure, let's say, the next round of investments. That value of that interaction might be very different from someone who is just traveling once in 6 months, trying to have that interaction. So it becomes very tough to get into a conversation as to what is my value out of an AI agent. We are all, it's highly nuanced, very early in the game. I don't think anyone of us can stand up and say that we have figured it out. We are all trying to experiment. How should we take it to the customer? How should we tell them that this is the ROI? This is why we have priced it in this fashion. Okay, so cost efficiency, lot of conversations will happen. Bear with the person who is going to come and bring these calculations, because it is evolving. So keep an eye on it. It is one of the key factors that really will drive success or failure of your multi-agent system. Okay, so I think I'll quickly brush. I think the benefits I've already spoken. I don't want to go back and revisit here. I just want to talk about the other side of the story also, right? Because I get a lot of startups who are building products on this. That's fantastic, right? Some side, the left side is consuming it. That's what I spoke in the previous slide also. It's almost like a repetition, so I'm skipping it. But there are a lot of startups who are leveraging this wave to build products and to bring them into market. Why? Because it's a huge market differentiation. If any one of you are in this domain, this is going to be it's like you entering as like say, you have a head start of 10 to 15 meters in a 100-meter race, because it's going to position you as an innovator in this space, right? Yes, we can still talk about RAG, we can still talk about mixer of experts, you can talk about all the frameworks. But to be very honest, in reality, most of the implementations are RAG implementations. I understand that. But when you also have a use case where you're telling that, hey, we as a company or a startup are thinking beyond these, and here is our multi-agent vision that we have, you automatically get the attention of investors, and it all rings a bell, because you're talking about the next gen kind of technology already. Huge revenue potential, I've already explained, right? Because when you hit the right customer and when you show them the right use cases, the classic example of what I told of a e-commerce customer who is returning after 6 months, that's a use case. These are huge revenue potentials that you can really go ahead and reap the benefits. Scalable solutions, because these are all, they are all very modular. That is the best. I think I have a slide, next slide, it will explain very clearly. But since it is like that container, Dockers, containers, and orchestration, Kubernetes, right? The old way of, if I go into the cloud world, we moved our monolithic to architecture which was highly modular, right? And that is exactly what we are doing. A job is nothing but a summation of the tasks that you're doing. So when you start focusing on automating or moving AI into those tasks, what happens is at any given point in time, you can plug and play. You can say 15 of this into one container could be an agent which is going to cater to something which is this use case. So that's why it's a very scalable solution. It's almost in many cases no code in today's world. Low code, debatable whether no code, low code can scale when you really become a big company. But still, this is a startup ecosystem, so you still can leverage this mainly from a no code and low code perspective. Interoperability. If I build an agent keeping in mind a marketing use case for, say, finance company, there is high likelihood that that same agent can serve 90% of any of the other domain. That's amazing, right? Because I already have a head start. I know where I'm going. When I'm conversing with when you're conversing with your customers, you can already start telling them that, hey, I have something which is there for this domain. with a minimal level of customization, I'm very confident that we can bring this to your domain. And the last one is, I already brought it, investor appeal. I see a lot of investors really go, they always like when someone is touching the future use cases or future technology. And this is not something which is just a jazz, according to me, because this is here to stay. I think everyone is investing in, they know the benefit of what is this agentic future. And this is going to be here, and that's why I think investors are very positive when we talk about how I'm envisioning my future multi-agent ecosystem. As always, nothing comes without challenges. What fun will we have if we don't have challenges, right? So, yes, at this point in time, there are few areas that we really are struggling. Lot of benefits, or we have moved the needle significantly, but there are still challenges. Now, it's so easy to put it on a diagram and say everyone will interact with everyone, okay? So, but when you really go into the infra layer, you see that the APIs, the plugins of company X is completely different from that of someone else. The XMLs are very different. The data layer is very different. I need to have some, like say, privacy keys set. Then only I have access to certain tools. I need to be onboarded on certain tools, have a persona, then only I will have, I mean, lot of challenges, right? So communication becomes a huge challenge. And we don't want any shadow AI kind of thing happening inside this ecosystem where you silently build a network, you realize that the communication was not right, and you leave it there. And you don't want any agent to go rogue in this ecosystem, because unless and until you go and clean it up, if there was a erroneous linkage or a communication or a network that you created, the onus on the tech person has to be that they have to eliminate it from the network, else your entire network can be jeopardized. So it's so critical that you need to know how the communication works. Then data security and privacy, I've already spoken about it. Cost of development and maintenance, it's relatively high at this point, because it's as any new tech, right? The more the adoption, the techniques become better, then we basically are able to do that cost optimization, right? But at this point, yes, it is slightly a costly affair, so you have to keep that in mind. Sometimes, this is my favorite point, because I hear a few of my friends, founders who come and they want to force fit this into their ecosystem. Could be because of the previous point, right? The investor appeal. So it's like something that could be done with basic, like robotic automation, or it was a programmatic solution. Example, in your autonomous vehicle, you don't want a scenario where the AI is sitting and thinking, should I take a left turn or a right turn? That's not feasible. You have to have instantaneous feedback going from your AI, right? So sometimes I've seen people over-rotate on this, which we have to leave aside the tech and look at it case to case from an use case perspective. And the last one, I think super critical, very serious point, ethics and the bias that we have, right? AI ethics officer is a role that many big companies are exploring, mainly because of these things, right? Like, I don't know how many of you follow, all these big tech companies now have that division where they are going to talk about ethics when involving AI. How does human workforce blend with AI? What are the ramifications of that? A very, very important thing. And it is even more important in AI agents, because you are going to push some level of decision making or significant amount of decision making towards the machine. So without the approval of that board or whatever office it's going to be, I don't see the future really. I mean, you'll not be highly successful if you oversee this point. That's super critical. And the last slide, I think I'm keeping time into consideration, 2 more minutes, then we can open up for. But I just wanted to leave you all with this. What is the future, right? Like, I have 11:45. Yeah. Okay. So the important thing is, how does the future look, right? Like the other day I was in a conversation and someone, and it's all over internet. You can Google it and check. It's like people are asking, will SaaS be dead because agents are here? Okay, and that made me think, and I was talking to some of my friends, and I said, I don't think so. I don't think SaaS will be dead, right? Like AI agents are not going to kill SaaS in any form or anything. See, there are three layers that you all need to understand when it comes to AI agent. It's more like repeating what I told, but with some clarity here. At the bottom, it's the infra layer, you can call the model, the LLM, whatever you want to say. Below that, it's the data layer, okay? Your RAGs of the world, your vector database, your IP, the small box on the extreme right is where your holy grail is, right? That's your company's IP that you're blending in. All this is what we have already done. Like we have done prompt re-engineering, we introduced retrieval augmented generation to get more accuracy from the responses of the LLM. Now what happens is we are adding two more layers. I think the big shift that is happening is a lot of big companies are focusing on the center mid layer. Why? Because we are slowly understanding that the more we build precise prompts, most accurate prompts, optimized prompts, we have a modular like array of, I don't want to call it yet as agents, but they are like agents in some fashion, without the autonomous activity maybe. They are just highly optimized prompts which can be scattered in this 2x2 matrix or even third dimension if possible. But vertical, horizontal, they will reside somewhere. You can put 50 verticals, 50 horizontals, then at every intersection, every individual line, you will find optimized prompts. Now what happens, the moment we are there, I don't know how many of you saw the Dreamforce presentation this year, right? So they showed 100 plus industry prompts as in one slide. Mark showed it, talking about, hey, how we are optimizing prompts for each of the industries. That's the kind of work that very, like the AI agentic teams in these companies are doing, mainly because you want to get those prompts right. You don't want to have any amount of ambiguity there. Once that ecosystem is established and each company will have its own optimized, then they will come out, we'll all come out and tell mine is more efficient, I have solved it better, I can solve more things. Then what happens is the top layer starts playing in, okay? So if you look at it, there are three variants that currently are there. One, already the SaaS play. Like if you look at any of your tools or any of your apps that you're using, you will find a chat window opening up the moment you're struggling. We see that in our e-commerce portal also that we were building, that something called as a virtual assistant. How do I ensure that my customer who's coming onto my platform doesn't need to call anyone in my company to configure a highly complex deal, product configuration? So what will happen is if you connect my ERP with my CRM, with my historical support system, support services, I get the holistic picture of the customer. Now what happens is my AI, along with in the same UI that I have, which is a SaaS platform, or it could be an on-prem platform, whatever it is, you can work within your web layer to interact and get into a interaction with the customer, with the AI and get it done. So that's more like the extreme right. Then it is the co-pilot era, right? Like where machines and human intelligence and artificial intelligence will reside together. What if I move that into something like a collaboration tool? Like it could be on a Slack, it could be on a WebEx, it could be on say, Microsoft Teams, where instead of going into my app or into my web application, I can do my order booking through my collaboration tool. That's like both working together. The customer is also on the same, the company's solution expert is also on the same channel. So it becomes like a co-pilot existence. And the third one is autonomous that we have discussed so much. And the beauty about it is all three of them will eventually tap into the millions of use cases that you might be defining. It's just that who uses it when, how they are going to use is what you are going to define. In some cases, the use cases are going to be so simple that you might go for extreme automation, which is based on AI agents. In some cases, you'll say, I need to be there in the loop, so keep me as a make AI as my co-pilot. Or in some cases, if either the company is too still stuck in the old era, or there is a genuine need for not exposing it, you will be working on something which is on a web application or the existing apps that we use. So that's the future, right? And you can extrapolate that into any real life. I already gave an example of smart city. This is how things will pan out. Someone might use it through agents. Someone might use it as a co-pilot. Someone might say that I want to still use my mobile phone. I'll go into log into an app and I'll do things. So that's how things will pan out. So that brings me to the end of this session. I have 10 minutes. Sorry, I tried to keep it 15 minutes, but ran over by 5 minutes. But broadly, this is where our AI agents are really heading. It's still very early. I would not say more than 6 months of work has been done from a front-end perspective. Groundwork, decades of groundwork. But front-end user stories, it's been like 6 to 12 months, right? So there's a lot of scope for evolution. Happy to take some questions here if needed.
Now the session is open for questions.
Hello. Yeah, thank you, sir. So can you enlighten us about cost structure of agent? Cost structure, cost.
Cost structure. Okay, you hit the most. See, eventually it will be, we cannot look at it more like a cost plus model for sure. It will again be a value-based pricing. When you look at the cost angle, leave the pricing for now. The cost angle will still remain on your infra for the most aspect, because end of the day, getting to do the fine tuning, your model training, more than that, you're even putting your data lakes in place. The core of it is your RAG infrastructure. It has to be there, or else it becomes extremely, see, all layers have to be aligned for your agent to be ready, right? So imagine how much of all that elements have to be done. Having said that, if you're going to be onboarding on a subscription model, for agent from like how we do AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, we just onboard and we just our instances are up and running, right? In future, your agents might, it will come in your subscription model where you will be able to scale based on how much your capacity requirement is. It could be, I don't know whether it will be on demand or will it be subscription. The jury is not out yet. Everyone is scratching their head on that. But for now, these look like the traditional models that will still be there. Only thing is, the ROI calculations might change, because when you deploy an agent based on the use case, as I said, the value changes, right? It is no longer going to be one value fits everyone sort of. It will be value based on each use case. So that's why there might be some element of dynamic value creation. But that is if I wear my pricing hat, I might put it as a adjustment or a delta for each use case. But I think value-based pricing will still be what it will take for you in the future.
Yeah. So great session. So my company is into CDP. So it's a startup. So you mentioned startup multiple times. So how can I use it? So we are into continuous data protection. We take backup and DR and things like that. So we have handful of customers. So it's an agent-based solution, but not the agent that you are talking about. It's a traditional old way of agents. The agent sits in the kernel. It's a simple old product. It's a simple backup product.
Got it.
So how do your agent help us? So there is few notification and some interaction with some dashboard, but how can I use your product for my benefit?
Absolutely. So if you look at AI agents in your space, right, especially data security and backups and all, we had, especially if you look at failure rates, right, when there's a event trigger, like why do we switch over from primary to secondary database, or when do we flip into the BCP mode, right? It was always an event which was defined in the ecosystem, correct? And inevitably, when a data center or an infra went down in a company, it was always, when you go back and do the mine for the RCA of it, root cause analysis, you'll find that a new use case that was not defined is what actually collapsed your ecosystem. It could be a new malware, it could be a new Trojan or anything of that nature, right? Or it could be a new incompatibility between, it happened in real life for us where our latest product, version of our product became incompatible with some of our data lake, the data pipelines that we had built, and that broke it down. So we had to roll back some of this. So in these scenarios, coming to your question, you will be, the agents of the past could have never caught these kind of situations. It was always defined for, if these events that I've seen historically happened, move it from your primary to secondary. But in this new agentic model, if you give access to that model for, let's say, tools which are monitoring infrastructure of some of your customers, or it is interacting with some of your core infrastructure players through APIs, it will be far more ready to analyze the event or predict the event even before it. Hypothetical situation, I don't have a use case that I can bring and say that this company or this startup did it, but I see these kind of things where it will be highly beneficial for the AI agentic model.
Very interesting session. Thank you so much. Just one question about it. Like, all these agents are based on an underlying process, right? And if the process is good, then the agent is good, right? And many a times when we implement it for an enterprise, the processes vary slightly. So if you bring in an agent, well, it's going to assume that it is generic in nature, right? So how do we handle such issues, right? Because of course there will be a customization of those agents for that particular process, right?
Yeah.
So deploying an agent is nice, it's not all okay, but you have to do some sort of customization. How would we handle such things?
No, fantastic question, right? Like, so that's why I keep, when startups bring this question, especially the startups, right? I don't recommend them that one agent can fit any of your use cases. Mainly because, see, net, all of us in this fancy layers that we talk, we forget about the data layer, right? Like, because that's where the proof of the pudding is. Like, unless that is correctly managed, your process layer is not currently calibrated. These are where the usual problems actually start. Because everyone is in this rush to get the top layers ready, that when we ask, like, how is the process stitched together? The moment we go into their old IBM Blueworks kind of like 10-year back processes and all, or the latest ones also, it is very, it's not in detail. Like, it looks very at a high level that, hey, this is my process. But when you go and start peeling it, you'll be finding that they have done some tweaks to get the data out of something in this process, or put a manual control. So you're bang on. Like, in those scenarios, that's why rather than having a tech conversation to start with, we have a use case conversation to start with. Everyone, if they start with that, move from use case, business case, process, then I think benefit starts.
And many at the time, it is only 60% happy path. There are like 30 variations of the same happy path.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because you will not, that is where sometimes we see that it becomes a challenge when you have limited resources, because it's not guaranteed unless the use case is like that payment gateway that I spoke about, right? Very straightforward. Your decision has to, or the autonomous cars example where the decision is very clear. If there is any element of if in the use case, it becomes challenging because startups cannot burn that level of resources to keep fine-tuning it. Okay, let me try tweaking this process, that process. I think that's why engaging a good, like having a good conversation upfront with someone who knows about this, analyzing the use cases, and then jumping into implementation can be far better than just jumping into it.
Wonderful session, sir. So a lot of questions has been answered while I was written down. All these questions has been answered. But one question that comes in from the infra standpoint, you said monolith to microservices, right? A lot of debate is still happening. So do you see this is going to happen after like 2 years down the line? So people are say Amazon went back to monolith and we see like that works fantastic. So do you see that's going to happen in the multi-agent scenario as well or not?
So I think, okay, I don't want to open a Pandora's box here, but see, that was a question that came to us in 1 year back, right? Someone said, will everything move from monolithic to microservices? No, there's no way we are going to do that, because when I build my own e-commerce, if my scope is only my e-commerce, I will today also go and build a monolithic, because I don't need that complexity of integrating 100 things. It's an established 3-tier architecture. I can build it, get it running, right? The same thing if I'm building a marketplace, I will not go monolithic. I'll go microservices, because I need to factor so many new people coming into my thing. Same thing will happen in this also, right? Everything will coexist, because it's very we are jumping too far into the future by saying this will be the only option available. No, like how microservices and monolithic exist today, both of them are great architectures. Both of them have their own fan following and use cases. Very similar, you will have agents where or no agent ecosystem also in future, because it's very well possible. We don't need agents in that situation. I think that's how it will pan out. It will be a complex mix of everything, and that's how the experts maybe will make money in future.
I hope there are further more questions. If you have anything, you can discuss in person with Mr. Vignesh Kumar. Before we conclude this session, we would like to present you with a small token of appreciation. For presenting this, I would like to welcome Mr. Adarsh Vijayan from Kerala Startup Mission.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.